We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark, but in the mid-afternoon. I'm Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. We're joining you on Sunday afternoon at about 3:25. Sorry, we're running a little late today on the live show. Josh, on the other line, had to write up the Mavs Moneyball preview or recap, and our content management system crashed. So, what's going on, Josh?
Nothing much. This is not going to be a fun game to talk about.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it depends on your definition of fun. Some people aren't going to have fun, though. Maybe some people will.
Mm-hmm. I really love these nationally televised games where the Dallas Mavericks embarrass us.
And nationally televised when there's no other games on at noon. Like literally everyone was watching this game.
Yeah.
If you're a basketball fan.
So, the Dallas Mavericks went up 11-0 and then proceeded to get outscored 120-105 over the next 45 minutes of basketball. At certain points, they were down by as many as 20, I think.
They got down by 18 with like 7:30 left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, real bad. The Philadelphia 76ers are without Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey was kind of their most name brand guy outside of maybe Buddy Hield and Tobias Harris. And they just got carved up. I know where I want to start because I know how the first quarter shitty things happened with Tyrese Maxey scoring 17 points, and I want you to talk a little bit about why that happened. But after that first quarter, I don't think I can explain correctly how the Mavericks proceeded to just stay in the mud.
Yeah, he actually scored 19 in the first half, so it was a little worse.
First quarter. He scored in the first quarter.
Oh, I thought you said first half.
No. So he only scored 24 points in the game, so he only scored 7 the rest of the game.
Yeah, he didn't make a shot in the second half. He didn't make a field goal.
Yeah.
I mean, they opened the game inexplicably in drop coverage, which drop coverage in the pick and roll is when the ball handler is kind of going over the screen and your big man is kind of walling off the paint and dropping back into the paint to prevent
giving some cushion to prevent drive.
To prevent the ball handler from turning the pick and getting a quick layup. And the thought process is you're giving up that inefficient mid-range spot because you're trying to actually coax them into that shot because you play the math long enough and what guys shoot on mid-range pull-up jumpers and you think that that's a good way to win. Now, of course, drop coverage is kind of becoming ancient history over the last 3 or 4 years because Players
NBA
adapt,
are good.
teams adapt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guards are not only better at hitting pull-up jumpers on all spots of the floor, but they're also good at leveraging that space. So, like, what really good guards that have speed do is they're like, oh, you're going to give me all that space. Well, I'm just going to hit the gas and I'm going to use that as a runway. And it doesn't matter if you're at the rim. If I've got a full head of steam, I'm either scoring over through you or you're going to have to foul me because you're not stopping me at max speed. So what Maxey did was kind of a little combination of both. He hit floaters, he hit teardrops,
He's
he
great.
got some layups. Like,
he's absolutely electric.
He manipulated that space to his advantage almost every single time. And I think coming into this game, he isn't shooting that well from those spots on the floor. I had someone on Twitter tell me he's like a 39% mid-range shooter, or for the most part, like he's not shooting. He's shooting below league average, I think, on most of those shots. His damage has mostly been done from the 3-point line and in the paint at the basket. But he has the talent to do that. And what makes it even weirder is the Mavericks played basically a very close version of the 76ers team. Now, they didn't have Kyle Lowry, they didn't have Buddy Hield, and they didn't have Nicholas Batum. But they didn't have Embiid in that February 5th game before the All-Star break. And the Mavericks basically were like, we don't trust anyone besides Maxey to do anything with the ball. So we are going to double, we're going to trap, we're going to blitz pick and rolls. And the Sixers scored 102 points, and Maxey had 15 points on 6 of 16 shooting. I don't know if they were spooked by Hield and Lowry being in the
that is the answer. Like, I am nearly 100% that they figured they could live with whatever shot diet Maxey had because they didn't want Lowry or Buddy Hield to beat them.
But what's funny is those guys, Hield had 11 points on 11 shots. Lowry made 1 shot and had 8 points. Mm-hmm. Like those, Hield's pretty good, but Lowry has not been.
Lowry is warmed over ass and has been for quite some time. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
he boofed a layup during
the fourth quarter. Yeah,
he was awful because he's not. It's not his fault. He's already. He's my age. He's poor. So they go to do. So what they did was they after he does that, they started doubling him a little bit more and trapping, and lo and behold, he stopped scoring. And the Sixers didn't have they didn't have a great offensive game. I know some guys beat them in the fourth quarter when they were kind of in scramble mode, but the Sixers shot under 30% from 3. They shot 45% from the field. For this Mavericks offense and this team, that's enough to win a game. Like, this game was lost on the defensive strategies to open the game and then the offense for the rest of the game. So that's the other part of the first quarter story is you had Luka, who hits a really great step back 3 to put the Mavericks up 11-0. And then he proceeded to miss his next 5 shots, 3 of which, if I remember correctly, were right at the rim. And sometimes they just don't go. And it's really confusing for us when we see Luka miss these kind of shots. Kyrie did not attempt a shot until the 2-minute mark, which was really odd. Kind of that was just game flow because the Mavericks were like looking to push the pace and attack, and they just, frankly, like chat themselves. There were so many turnovers. Bet
that's really the story of the game.
So the Sixers end with 8 turnovers. The Mavericks end with 17, and all but one came from the starters. Luka and Kyrie combined for 11. Luka was 7 himself. Like, Luka was as sloppy as he's been with the ball. He had a multi-game stretch early in the year when he had like 6 or 7 turnovers apiece, and then he like really, really cleaned it up. And it was like the turnovers were coming in really stupid situations. Like, Luka dribbled off his knee.
Yep.
On
a timeout.
After a timeout. Yeah. It's
the turnovers.
Really something.
That's the killer. You can't. Kyrie and Luka having 11 turnovers combined. That's about what
Kyrie's turnovers were as like. Just because I hold Kyrie's ball handling in such high regard, Kyrie's ball handling today, it's like Benny Hill music shit. Because at one point he looked at his hands, we're like, what? Like, wow, how did that happen? Kind of thing. And you're gonna have games like this. They had a lot of bad things happen together at once, mixed in with a poor defensive game plan. So they're off their rocker. What the hell happened in the second and third quarters though?
Third quarter, I don't know. Like second quarter, they won the second quarter. The third quarter was bad. It was so they finally started doubling and getting the ball out of Maxey's hands, and Maxey got hurt. I didn't even know if he was going to return to the game. He hit his head on the back of. Yeah, I thought he might have a concussion.
I thought he, yeah.
After hitting the back of his head on Jones's leg there, falling to the floor when he slipped. And then it was the Tobias Harris, Kelly Oubre show. And it's like, those were just straight up, Harris was winning one-on-one in the post, and Oubre was just taking dudes off the dribble. Like, this wasn't elaborate action. This wasn't messed up pick and roll coverage. Oubre was just taking guys off the dribble and scoring in the paint. He was getting fouled. He was using good ball fakes to get the Mavericks bigs up in position to get to the free throw line a couple times. And then Harris was just like, it didn't matter who was guarding him. Like if it was Jones had him on a couple of post ups, and Harris and Jones is a good defender, but Harris has a good, I don't know what the weight advantage is there, but Harris is 226. I think Jones is, please let me look it up real fast. Sure. Jones is 210. So almost, good 15, 20 pound, difference there. And it showed in the post, like he was scoring through and over Jones, like it didn't matter.
He also he ended up on Kyrie. Like Kyrie ended up on him like 5 times, where Hubie Brown is like basically outright questioning what is happening.
Yeah, they didn't have their switches right. They didn't have their help coverage right. This looked like a team that didn't really know. They didn't know. It didn't look like they knew what they wanted to do tactically.
Well, and you come out of halftime. This is the thing, and this is where we're going to circle back to kind of the overarching issue. Go ahead. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No. You can go. Go ahead.
No, I don't even know what I want to say. Okay. I want to cut to our break real quick, but you were mid thought.
No, I was just going to say, I have a larger point about the offense that I would make with the turnovers and like this style. But yeah, to sum it up before we go into the break, and this can lead into probably our bigger discussion, is again, I don't know what they were trying to do tactically in this game, because they were not executing standard principles, and they looked lost and confused, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, so halfway through this show, we're not going to do a long one today. I'm also not going to do a post show. I want to go hang out with my kid. It's the weekend. He's awake. You guys will appreciate that. Who really wants to talk about this game anymore anyways, other than to repeat the same stuff? And I just don't really feel like being super pissed off by it, because this team isn't really worthy of the kind of heat that we're feeling. But if you do like our show, go ahead and go down and hit like for the live video. If you could do me a favor and also consider hitting subscribe. We're kind of marching up the subscription ranks as the year goes along. Be a lot easier and a lot more helpful if the Mavericks were winning. But when you lose 4 out of 5, all of them to Eastern Conference teams, our numbers are going to be kind of crappy. But if you're listening on a podcast stream and you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. Normally I will try to do our second fan show where you guys can come vent and celebrate if the Mavericks win following the game on Tuesday. Pretty sure they play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I think this week. And we'll see what's what. This has been a little bit of a taxing stretch of the season, but that's going to happen. If you guys will also bear with me here for just a second and let us insert some ads for the podcast stream. We'll be right back.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Okay. So when you lose a game like this, there's like all sorts of like elements of blame. And we started off talking specifically about the defensive game plan and how they executed it, or really how they didn't execute it. And what that comes back to, and I've been thinking about this because the Mavericks will go on another run again. I think they'll be fine. They're probably going to be a play-in team at this rate. It's a question of what seed and where they're playing. And then,
but the big question, not to interrupt you, is this team being a play-in team fine?
No, it's not.
Oh, right.
No. And they have the talent for it. They went out and made two. I was one of the few people to basically say, and the Mavs media, at least, to national media, was very skeptical of the trade, but I was very much like, I don't like this many future assets going out the door. Then the Mavericks won 7 in a row. So I was promptly, dunked on, which is fine. Now they've lost 4 out of 5. And the concerns look a little bit prescient because they're not using Gafford enough, largely because Gafford doesn't seem to know what to do in these drop coverage situations. He's not being asked to use his athleticism. They're not playing Derek Lively 18 minutes again tonight. They're going back to the same well over and over again, Maxi Kleba and Tim Hardaway Jr. And even when, we didn't even talk about the fact that they got a gajillion threes from Derek Jones Jr., which was the only thing keeping this game from being like a 40-point blowout.
Yeah. That's
and
why
Derek Jones Jr. last hit more than 1 3 in a game since January 17th. It's been 6 weeks since he hit more than 1 3 a game.
He had 23 points in his previous 8 games combined. He had 21 today.
Mm-hmm. And so it kind of comes back to the overarching question of, you just said it, like, what is this team trying to do? And that comes back quite simply to the head coach. People aren't going to like this discussion, or you're going to love it. There's really only 2 ways, because number one, there's like a group of fans that just really love Jason Kidd, and to which I have to ask you one simple question. Are you okay?
Yeah, where has he earned your loyalty throughout his coaching career?
He helped us win a championship. I'm eternally grateful to that, but he is mid personified if you go look at his record. Sorry. And so the buck has to stop somewhere, A. And number 2, based on the moves that they've made, he's the only thing that can change. That's the dark part. So let's just say you wholeheartedly disagree with me. Kirk, you're a clown fraud. You don't know what you're talking about. Jason Kidd is not the problem. The problem is the roster building and the execution, which I think is a just as a side plot. There's something to that. This is the business they've chosen. They are in the Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, 2 bad defenders business. And yes, Kyrie is a train wreck on defense lately, if you're paying any attention. And you just can't hide this many, negative defenders with guys behind them that aren't incredible. Lively's not there yet. Derek Jones is fine. Maxi is not it. But
they don't have their Draymond Green to make up for, a Steph Curry. Like they still don't have an all defense level guy on the roster.
Right. That's right. We have 2 back-to-back comments. Love this. Stop hating Kirk, followed by Kirk is cooking. The dichotomy of man. Anyway, it becomes this sort of situation of, what do you do differently? And I had a friend at the game tonight, high school friend who doesn't really watch a lot of Mavs. And I said, give me your scouting report after the game. He just shot me a text right before the show started. And he said, they need to find Jason Kidd a new job because he looks really bored. And that I just like I've been told over and over again that Kidd's in-game adjustments are what I'm not seeing properly. today was a great example of those in-game adjustments not sticking. There are examples of him doing a hell of a job. I just get very confused where it feels as if their game plan boils down to, well, we need Luka and Kyrie to get hot. And like Luka and Kyrie's box scores, both of them put together, nearly so 64 points, 14 assists, 16 rebounds, 11 turnovers, which we discussed. Their box scores are a lie for both of them, quite candidly, because Kyrie hit 2 threes well after the game was basically decided. Luka had the horrid turnovers. And I'm not saying they played awfully. I'm saying they played bad enough to where the Sixers really had something going. So I'm just like, gosh, this is the only thing left to change, if there ever is a change, is the coach.
Yeah, and when you look at Luka and Kyrie, it's starting to feel by design. We talked about this after the Pacers loss. Teams seem to be okay now with letting those two guys work in one-on-one situations and hold the ball and score a bunch of points, so long as, like, you know, the other guys don't really beat them. And Derrick Jones Jr. almost did it, but they need more, and they need more than just him to do something. Like, you look at everyone else. Washington had 13 on 10 shots. Lively had 4 points in 18 minutes. Josh Green had 7 points in 20 minutes. Maxi Kleber 2 points in 26 minutes. DeMar Way Jr. 2 points in 15 minutes. Daniel Gafford 0 points in 13 minutes. Like, there's just
Gafford got destroyed.
And I don't want to, you know, I know we're talking about the coach, so I want to tie it back into what we're talking about with the coach and the strategy. Offensively, like, teams have conceded Luka and Kyrie shooting a lot and scoring a lot, because I think they've made, when you're playing against two offensive talents this good, you kind of have to gamble and give something up and then trust something on the back end. And early in Luka's career, and for most of Luka's career, it's been the blitzing. And it happened a lot before the All-Star break. It's like, okay, we don't want Luka to beat us, so we are going to see if these role players with the ball in their hands can do something. We trust our rotations and closeouts, or we trust that they're not going to hit all their open shots because we actually don't think they're that good of shooters. And we've actually seen Luka carve, you know, that's happened before, but I think for the most part, the Mavericks kind of carve that coverage up, except for, you know, a few notable high leverage examples in some clutch games. But for the most part, like, Luka handles the blitz very well, and the Mavericks score pretty well out of it. And now teams are like, okay, instead of giving these limited players open opportunities and open space to work with, what if we stop giving them that space? Like, what if instead of Luka scoring 32 and then maybe some other role players hitting 4 or 5 threes, we just one-on-one guard Luka, one-on-one guard Kyrie, and instead of having these wild closeouts or wide open spot up shots, we just guard straight up for everyone else. Like, Maxi Kleber had 2 shot attempts in 26 minutes, and I know he doesn't have a quick trigger, but that's a guy that has to have wide open space to shoot and to get off his shot. If the Mavericks aren't doubling, especially if Maxi's pick and popping, like, where is Maxi going to shoot the ball? Like, I think teams have realized, I think we have a better chance guarding PJ Washington, Josh Green, Maxi, Tim Hardaway Jr., all these other guys in one-on-one situations than we do trying to stop Kyrie and Luka from going off. Because, like, Luka still got his numbers when teams blitzed him. So it's almost like, I mean, remember back when Steve Nash was MVP and one of the strategies was, okay, let's let him not, instead of him getting 15 assists, let's let him score 39 points. Mm-hmm. And that kind of worked some nights. And I think teams are like, I would rather guard everyone else on this team one-on-one because I don't think these guys can beat us one-on-one, and just hope that we can balance out what Kyrie and Luka are doing scoring-wise. And that's kind of what's been happening in these last 5 games. And the thing that ties us back into coaching is, like, it feels like when this team is not coming on an out of timeout situation, when Luka's not getting blitzed, there's just nothing. There's no movement. There's no motion. Mm-hmm. There's no real action. There's no strategy. There's no conviction. It's just stand around and watch Luka or Kyrie go to work. And obviously those two guys can get their points, but man, if your role players are being stymied because teams are fine guarding one-on-one, you cannot let those guys just stand in the corner and watch. Like, there just has to be some more dynamicism to the way the offense is going in the half court.
And that's on
maybe Luka. Maybe it's on Luka.
That's on no, that is on Luka, but it everyone else shares a role in it to where if it's not happening, then everyone needs to get together and figure out something that can work.
Like where's the adjustment? It's been about 5 games now.
The adjustments are, okay, well, we're going to let Josh Green bring up the ball and see what catastrophe will happen as a result of that, or and then we're going to get Luka a post up from 17 feet like that. It's like they only have, I coached a little league flag football game earlier this year, and I had a playbook. Like, I ran out of ideas after about 6 plays because I'm like, I don't know what to do here because I don't know what I'm doing. And that's the way the Mavericks offense feels to me sometimes, where it's like, we're all out of ideas and we've tried nothing. And that really is a team thing. Like, I think Luka bears more responsibility than a lot of folks are willing to say out loud, because like Luka wants to run isolation, high screen, and roll stuff, but they draw such good stuff. This is one area where Kidd and the coaching staff are great. Out of timeouts, where it's like, why can't you have more base plays?
Yeah. Where are those out of timeout plays just in the normal flow of a half court offense? Like, why is it only out of timeouts? It's just
and there's these games have emphasized some of the challenges. Like the Celtics game, I have like two real issues with the Celtics game. Number one, why is Josh Green on Jason Tatum as opposed to PJ Washington? And then everyone else, please hit an open shot. Like, those are like the only 2 things I really think that might have helped save. Because the Celtics are, awesome. Have you checked the score of what they're doing to the Warriors right now? It is 82-38.
They're pretty good.
A quarter it is halftime. Okay, it makes you feel a little bit better. And so you get these other options. So we have one gentleman in the chat who's just really arguing, being very pro Jason Kidd, which again is just a stance that you're taking. And, I pointed out, for example, that the Mavericks shut down to Tyrese Maxey following his first quarter flurry, which they did. And he responded in the chat correctly that Tobias Harris then went off with 28 points. But let's be clear here. Tobias Harris, like, the Mavericks went to a 2-3 zone for a significant portion of this game. Zone is a coward's defense at the NBA level because it means you're all out of ideas. Before that, Kyrie ended up on Tobias like 3 plays in a row where Hubie Brown is pointing out what is happening here. The Mavericks have been going, and we did this after the Boston game, even though I still don't think it would have mattered. The Mavericks have been going small despite trading for bigger players. They keep going back to the Maxey Kleber well, and it's not 2022 anymore. Maxey is not helping. PJ, frankly, this is a really rough PJ game for me. Probably one of his worst, with some of his like just errant shot decisions paired with Kyrie gets the game tied at, I want to say PJ gives Luka takes a really long step back and PJ gets the offensive board and lays it in. And I want to say the Mavericks are down. But then the ensuing possession, he just lets Tobias Harris, meaning PJ Washington, lets Tobias Harris go right by him into a 10-footer. Like, Tobias is kind of a mess of a player if you look at their whole season, but they made him look like a superstar.
That's like the one thing he does good too, are those little short post up mid-range shots, like in the short, not in the restricted area, but like in the paint outside, like free throw line area. Like, that's the one thing that like he does well. And they just kind of let him operate there because, again, they had to double Maxey and they let Batum. Weird thing was they were doubling Maxey. I don't know if there was a way to get around this, but they kept, the Sixers were smart and used Nicholas Batum as a screener to invite that double onto Maxey with Batum's man. And Batum was catching the ball at the free throw line as a 4-on-3 guy. And that's such a good role for him. Like, he's so comfortable doing that stuff. And he had he had 3 assists and no turnovers and 11 rebounds. Like, he was, he missed a lot of shots, but he was orchestrating out of that double team really well.
Yep.
And there's a part of me that was like, can they figure out a way so it's not Batum is the guy that's catching out of the Maxey doubles?
But I would still rather get the ball out of Maxey's hands. I mean, he was on pace to score 68 points.
No, they had to change for sure.
They had to do something different. It was like the difference would have, it's not to be this dramatic, but the difference would have been like what Atlanta did against Luka, where they're like, okay, well, we're just going to see how many points he scores. And granted, Atlanta still nearly won.
Can I give you a stat here?
Of course.
So in the since the All-Star break, so the Mavericks on the season average about 25 assists per game, which is in the lower third of the league. Since the All-Star break, here are their team assist totals in what have they played? I don't know how many games, but Phoenix 24, Indiana 15, Cleveland 23, Toronto 32, which was a big win. Boston 20, Philadelphia 20. In the previous 6 games going into the All-Star break, they were above 25 or more assists every single time. So I just, again, it just comes back to this: we're not going to double Luka to give these guys open space. You have to figure out a way for these other guys to beat you, and there's nothing. Like their offensive game plan right now when teams aren't blitzing Luka is, all right, Luka, Kyrie, go do it.
And on that mark, I've not seen any Luka Kyrie pick and roll.
It was really good going in the All-Star break, and it's been fizzling out since.
I mean, I haven't seen it used.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen it? I'm just
I saw
could
it.
Be off.
I saw it in a couple games going into the All-Star break, but since the All-Star break, it's dried up for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we might have to talk about that win streak, who they played, but I don't want to.
Sure,
be too
it doesn't feel as fake as last year. Like they're they're not a serious team, but they are not we're going to fall out of the play. Like, they're going to be fine. They're not going to do anything about Jason Kidd. That's the real thing. Like, they're just not. Like, why would they? That would admit, like, this team does not admit mistakes. And so that would be an in-season mistake, and it would take something catastrophic for that to happen. And considering the players just sort of seem to get to do whatever they want to a certain extent, why would they want Jason Kidd fired?
Also, there's 20 games left. Like, you don't make,
right.
You don't make coaching changes this late into the season.
Right. And so,
horrid.
The outcome is like this, as far as I can see it. They're probably going to be like 7 or 8. And then they have 2 outcomes from that, which, if they lose, catastrophic bad things. If they were to fall out of the play-in, and I can't even remember how the play-in rules work. I'm very stupid with this stuff.
If you're in the 7-8 game, it's 1 win and you're in. If you're in the 9-10 game, you have to win 2 games.
Okay.
But if you lose the 7-8 game, you get one more chance against the winner of 9-10, and that's the 8th seed.
You don't want to be put in that position.
Yeah, do or die.
Bottom line.
Right.
And I would obviously take Luka in a do or die position, but I wouldn't take it. Like, could you imagine playing the Lakers and
or the Warriors, or
you guys,
or the
you guys think we bitch about the ref stuff now? Like, Anthony Davis having 17 free throws is a thing that would happen in a game like that, but that's neither here nor there.
Have the Mavericks played well against the Warriors, Lakers, or Kings in the last 2 years? Those are the teams in the play-in that if they'd be with.
So that's like a DEFCON 1 situation, losing in the play-in. And then the other option is you win in the play-in, and then you go play one of the top 2 teams. Now, I could see the Mavericks doing something. I just can't. This team has too much offensive firepower and has enough talent to play better than they played. But as opposed to feeling like, oh, you know what, we're going to ride into a 5-6 seed and be very happy, which is what everybody, including us, we're sort of talking about going into this stretch run. We're looking at something different, and it just doesn't feel very good, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, they're still within. I mean, they are
the Warriors. They would be tied with the Warriors if the Warriors could win, but the Warriors are getting shellacked, as we mentioned.
Yeah, they would. They're still a game and a half out of 6th.
A lot of things can still happen, so maybe this will all be for naught. But
have you seen the schedule
for the Mavericks?
Yeah. So here's their next. Let's say their next 5 or 6 games. They play 2 more, Indiana and Miami, which are 2 teams with 2 winning records. So take that what you will. They get a bit of a reprieve, Detroit, Chicago, then Golden State, Oklahoma City, Denver, 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. So they need to find a way, if they can get, if you pencil in the Detroit and Chicago games as wins, which I know everyone's going to yell at me and say you can't pencil in this team to win any games, but they're going to be favored in the Detroit and Chicago games at the very least. If they can find a way to pick up maybe 2 wins out of the Indiana, Miami, Golden State, Oklahoma City, Denver 5-some, they might be able to hold water, because then the schedule does get a little easier. They play Utah twice. They play Houston twice. They play Charlotte.
Which
Played
that's
Detroit for
the
the end of the
Houston's
season.
lurking. Houston is trying to make the playoffs, so I'm not really sure.
Oh, I know. With the way the team's playing now, there's not really, you can't really guarantee anything. But to be fair, their losses in these last few games have been all against teams like they haven't lost a game to a team with a losing record in a hot minute. Although Philly, I don't know. I know Philly doesn't have.
Philly's notched 2 wins against Dallas during their damn without Embiid stretch. So
Their last 2 weeks, they're 26th in net rating, and that's including some Mavericks wins. So they are not a good team right now. So this loss, it's a bad loss. Like I don't think we can emphasize that enough. This was a bad, no good loss. Very bad.
Well, in cool news, before we get out of here, the Mavericks are converting two-way guard AJ Lawson to a standard NBA contract.
Good for him.
Good for him. Really liked him back to the first time we saw him in summer league. Just like him. Does he have a podcast? Because if he has a podcast, that will push him down in my in my rankings. No, seriously, good for him. Jay in the chat wants to know kind of our thoughts on Omax. Omax has really been tearing it up in the G League, looking very confident. I just have a hard time because I don't know how G League stuff translates. I just don't. Some of the box scores down there are bananas. And he looks confident, but the stats on him are kind of like he doesn't get steals, he doesn't get blocks.
Yeah, continuing his
he
college
does the same thing he did in college, which is like blanket out the sun, one guy.
Yeah.
So
I would just say this: relying on a rookie who has not played most of this season to be like, this is what's going to pull us out of the slump is risky. But I mean, we're at the point now where it's like
Tim Hardaway's been so bad that it's like
we didn't even
want to
talk
try
about
somebody
him.
else at 3 just for a minute.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Tim. I don't know what to do with Tim. As someone that has tried to defend him, there's no defending left. He's been bad. I guess to the credit, he only played 15 minutes, which is the least minutes he's played.
Got up a lot of shots.
He did. He got 8 shots in those 15 minutes. Sounds like a guy that knows he has a short leash right now. Would you be surprised? That is the least amount of minutes he's played in a game this season.
No, not with how bad his shots tonight were like turnovers. Yeah. Turnovers bad. This is one of those where, you and I do this. We take time out of our lives to do this. We don't make the money to justify the effort that goes into it. I think it's largely a labor of love. This was one of those games, felt very 2016-ish, where it's like, why the hell are we covering these Mavericks? This is awful.
This is not fun
yeah.
games.
Yeah.
No.
Good point. Long live organic says how long until Kid plays Dwight Powell again. It's a good point. We didn't have to see Dwight Powell. I like that. All right, so we'll be back on Tuesday. I got to figure out some other stuff. Our website content is kind of dripped to nothing just because we don't really have a lot of takes right now because it's just bad basketball. And I don't really know what the Mavericks can do differently because it seems like the answer is always high Spain, pick and roll. That's the answer to all of our problems.
Can Lucas score 73 points again? I think that's probably it.
Well, you got anything else before we get out of Dodge?
No, I think that's it. I am interested to see these Indiana. I haven't seen Miami yet this season, so that'll be fun to see a team for the first time. But you need a split.
They're going to upset us. Miami is going to specifically upset me. Because
Spoelstra versus Kid.
Jaime, is it Jaime? How do you what's his last name?
Jaquez.
Jaime Jaquez is just
he's fun.
He's magnificent fun. He's the perfect player for them.
He's a disgustingly good, perfect Heat player, and it's very annoying.
Well, your camera just turned off, so that means we
let's go.
Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. We'll be back on Tuesday night. Sorry, I just don't feel like hanging out. I just, my kid wants to watch a movie or something, and he's only young once, and the Mavericks will never die. All right, Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. Everybody be good. Thanks so much, and go Mavs.